Imagine stepping into a ring or, a sparring mat. You're facing someone who is built like an Olympic powerlifter.
Like just incredibly broad shoulders, dense muscles.
Exactly. Clearly capable of bench pressing a small car. So you throw a standard textbook left jab, but instead of slipping the punch or like blocking it,
Doing a normal martial arts block.
yeah, this 190-pound wall of muscle instantly executes a flawless no-hand cartwheel to your blind side and then hits you with a flying knee before your brain even registers that they moved.
It just completely breaks the human brain's visual tracking. I mean, you're expecting the physics of a heavy boxer, and you get hit with the physics of an attack helicopter.
Welcome to the deep dive, because today we are looking at a combat system that, frankly, shouldn't be humanly possible. We are unpacking a completely novel, highly acrobatic martial arts system called TrueFlow.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this right now thinking, that sounds like a superhero movie, not a real martial art, you're definitely not alone.
Oh, totally. I had the exact same thought when I first opened these documents.
Which is really what makes this deep dive so compelling.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at two highly detailed sources authored by a Dr. Melvin Sewell. He's from the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies.
What a name, right?
I know. But the sources are incredibly thorough. The first is a dense, formally structured academic publication hosted on the Zenodo Research Archive. And the second is this expansive, beautifully documented feature in Bibe magazine.
Right, and the mission today is to figure out what this actually is. Because the documents pitch TrueFlow as an ambidextrous, high-agility, kinetic martial arts system.
It's a mouthful.
It is,
Right.
and they claim to synthesize a wildly contradictory list of physical disciplines. I mean, we are talking Olympic-level powerlifting, track and field long jumping, gymnastics, the fluid kicks of capoeira, the devastating strikes of Muay Thai, collegiate wrestling, and collegiate cheerleading tumbling passes. Let's not forget that part.
Yes, cheerleading, tumbling, blending all those elements sounds like pure chaos on paper. It does, but as we are going to explore, Dr. Sewell has formalized this down to the mathematical equation. The goal for us today is to explore how TrueFlow meticulously merges elite, boundary-pushing human biomechanics with what can only be described as multiversal science fiction philosophy.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to even begin wrapping our heads around TrueFlow, we have to ask you to unlearn almost everything you know about traditional combat sports.
All right, just throw it out the window.
Pretty much. Think about how a boxer or a karate master or a Muay Thai fighter moves. Almost all of traditional combat relies on stance dominance. You have a grounded anchor.
You stand orthodox with your left foot forward or southpaw with your right foot forward.
Exactly, and that stance dictates everything. You have a jab hand and a power hand.
Yeah.
You rely on the friction of the floor to generate force.
You wind up, you shift your weight from your back foot to your front foot, and you strike. It's very linear, very geometric and rooted.
But that winding up, that weight shift, it's a telegraph. It tells the opponent what is coming because your body must conform to basic Newtonian physics to generate power from that static stance.
Right.
Well, TrueFlow discards stance dominance entirely. Left versus right literally does not exist in this system. Instead, they use what Dr. Sewell calls an ambidextrous kinetic base.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism they use to achieve mobility without a stance. They call it the hydraulic engine paired with elastic kinetic transfer.
Hydraulic engine, it sounds so industrial.
It really does. But it makes sense because when you aren't planning your feet to generate power, you have to find that kinetic energy somewhere else, right? TrueFlow finds it in continuous, omnidirectional motion and ground reaction forces.
Yeah, I was trying to visualize this, and the best analogy I could come up with isn't a traditional fighter. A traditional martial artist is like a heavily armored tank.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. It's a massive, incredibly powerful machine, but it has to stop, plant its treads into the dirt, and swivel its turret just to fire a heavy shot.
Yeah, it needs to be rooted.
But TrueFlow is more like a high-speed off-road rally car or an omnidirectional drone. Like a drone with a long-travel suspension system. It doesn't need to stop to hit you. It absorbs the terrain, compresses its shocks, and violently releases that kinetic energy to launch itself in a completely new direction without ever losing speed.
That suspension analogy translates perfectly to what the specification calls the piston ground drive.
Piston ground drive.
Yeah. Think about the physics of a track and field long jumper launching themselves into the air. They don't stop, plant their feet, and wind up before the jump.
Right, they use their running momentum.
Exactly. They convert extreme horizontal momentum directly into a vertical and forward trajectory. And they do that through an explosive, instantaneous activation of their calves, quadriceps, and posterior chain.
So they're essentially bouncing their mass off the floor at high speed.
They are. And TrueFlow adapts this exact long jump launch mechanic for combat. It allows the practitioner to launch into instant level changes or thrusting kicks from literally any angle at any moment.
That's wild.
And they pair this piston ground drive with hip whiplash. So instead of throwing a punch from the shoulder, practitioners use a rapid, violent, rotational snapping of the pelvis that drives force directly out to the extremities.
Man, just imagine the geometry of that. You are trying to move in every direction at once, never establishing a dominant foot to rest on, constantly snapping your hips to generate torque and bouncing off the ground like a rally car.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Right, you aren't just moving forward and backward on a line, you are maintaining a continuous sphere of kinetic energy.
But, and this is big, but operating a hydraulic engine of that magnitude comes with a massive physiological cost.
Oh yeah.
Relying on such violent rotational torque without the safety of a rooted stance requires incredibly dense structural integrity.
And this leads us to the raw physical toll. I cannot overstate this for you listening. This isn't a weekend hobby you pick up at the local gym for cardio.
Definitely not.
The Zanotto specification includes a physical qualification matrix, and the numbers are absolutely staggering. To safely perform these high-velocity torque releases and acrobatic rebounds, practitioners must meet massive power-to-weight ratios.
We are looking at elite structural foundations just to begin level I of the syllabus.
I'm going to read you the exact numbers from the source for their baseline anchor. This is just the entry-level physical requirement for an athlete who is 6'1" and weighs 190 pounds.
Just to qualify, right?
Just to qualify to learn TrueFlow. This 190-pound individual must be able to bench press between 335 and 400 pounds. They must squat 475 pounds, and they must deadlift 475 pounds.
Which, translating that into performance metrics, is a push metric pushing past 2 times their own body weight and a pull metric of 2.5 times their body weight.
And I have to push back on this logically. When I read those numbers, my immediate thought was, this is physically contradictory. Well, those metrics demand elite powerlifter territory. And powerlifters train specifically to move heavyweight in a straight line. They are famously rigid. How does someone with that much sheer muscle bulk sustain the hypermobile acrobatic gymnastics required by this system?
You'd think they would just be too stiff, right?
Yeah. You would think they could completely gas out in 30 seconds or just not be able to bend like that.
It seems entirely contradictory until you look at the extreme forces acting on the human body during these movements. That muscle mass isn't there to make them hit harder. It is an offensive muscle. It is quite literally biological armor.
Biological armor to protect them from themselves.
Precisely. The sheer kinetic stress placed on the joints during TrueFlow's instant level changes is catastrophic for a normal human body.
Oh, because of the jumping.
Right. Think about performing that hip whiplash in midair, or redirecting your momentum instantly with a back handspring without a planted stance. The eccentric loading the force your muscles absorb as they lengthen under tension on the knees, ankles, and spine is immense.
Wow. So they aren't lifting 475 pounds so they can hit you with 475 pounds of force. They are lifting it so their own patellar tendon doesn't snap in half when they land a flying acrobatic strike.
Exactly. Without that dense muscular structure mandated by the physical qualification matrix acting as a hyper-efficient shock absorption system, the acrobatic decoupling would tear a practitioner's ligaments to shreds on the first day.
That is insane.
It really is about possessing the structural density to survive your own kinetic output.
Okay, so you have this 190-pound athlete. They are built like a brick wall. They move like an Olympic gymnast, and they hit like a long jumper.
A terrifying combination.
Truly. What happens when you put that into a tactical combat scenario? Here's where it gets really interesting, because the specification doesn't just leave this as theory. It outlines highly specific combat modules. Let's look at the core offensive chain, known as the kinetic break.
The kinetic break is a brilliant example of how TrueFlow weaponizes an opponent's momentum rather than meeting it head-on. It systematically dismantles the opponent's physical structure through 4 very clinical phases.
Yeah, and I want to break down why these phases work so well biomechanically. So phase I is the joint intercept. As the opponent charges forward, the TrueFlow practitioner throws a lead side kick or front stop kick aimed directly at the opponent's lead knee joint.
Brutal.
Right. This isn't a traditional block. It is designed to instantly stop all forward momentum by literally breaking the hinge of the body.
A human cannot generate forward power if their lead strut is compromised. And before the opponent's brain even processes the pain from the stop kick, TrueFlow moves into phase 2, which is base disruption.
The calf chops.
Yes, the practitioner unleashes rapid, untelegraphed calf chops. But they aren't just kicking the leg randomly. The specific target is the peroneal nerve in the lower leg.
This is such a nasty anatomical trick. Striking the peroneal nerve effectively paralyzes the foot's ability to flex upward.
It causes a condition called drop foot.
Drop foot, exactly. You literally cannot stand flat or push off that leg anymore. It completely destroys whatever balance the opponent has left after the knee strike.
Which perfectly sets up the geometry for phase 3 total displacement. The opponent's base is shattered, they are leaning forward to compensate for the dead leg, and the practitioner fires a full hip front push kick.
Like a teep in Muay Thai.
Exactly like a teep, straight into the sternum.
So you are violently ejecting them backward when they have absolutely no foundation to catch their fall.
Leaving them entirely open for phase 4, the terminal strike. As the opponent is physically airborne or stumbling backward, the TrueFlow practitioner closes the distance instantly using that long jump mechanic we talked about.
Oh wow, they jump into it.
Yeah, they utilize either a close-range rotational elbow to the jaw or an explosive flying knee to the center of the face.
I mean, it reads like a slow-motion sequence in a high-budget action film.
Yeah.
Knee, nerve, chest, jaw. But that is just when they are on the offense.
Whew.
I'm trying to picture the defensive side.
It's just as wild.
If someone sweeps my leg, my human survival reflex is to brace for impact, drop my center of gravity, or, block. TrueFlow teaches something completely different.
They cover defense under a module called acrobatic decoupling, and this is where the collegiate cheerleading and gymnastics influences really take over.
The tumbling.
Yeah. When an opponent charges or throws a sweeping attack, the TrueFlow practitioner utilizes back handsprings, aerials, and no-hand cartwheels to instantly decouple from linear tracking lines.
I have to admit, cartwheeling away from a punch sounds absurd until you realize what it does to the human eye.
It totally exploits a flaw in visual processing. Think about it. If you are throwing a straight punch, your brain is calculating the trajectory of a target moving away or slipping to the side.
Right, on a normal plane.
But if your target suddenly executes a no-hand cartwheel out of your peripheral vision, dropping their center of mass and inverting their body, your brain literally cannot track that movement fast enough to adjust the strike.
It's almost like a visual cloaking mechanism. And because of the hydraulic engine, they don't just land, stand up, and reset.
No, and this is the genius of the system's underlying pattern. Every single defensive evasion is engineered to become an instantaneous, high-amplitude offensive strike. The evasion fuels the counterattack.
So they strike from the flip.
Exactly. The moment their foot touches the ground from that back handspring, they use the downward force to convert the landing plant immediately into a vertical pop-up crescent strike to the jaw.
Unbelievable. And the sources also detail how they handle close quarters. Like if someone manages to grab their wrist or catch them in a joint lock, they perform airborne tumbling reversals to instantly neutralize the leverage. They literally flip out of danger.
Which requires insane spatial awareness.
Yeah. And on the offensive grappling side, they utilize high-amplitude slams, rapid rear waist locks, German suplexes, and leverage throws.
But think about the cognitive load required to do that. Maintaining this level of physical chaos, calculating trajectories, and processing all of these spatial variables in real time requires an equally radical mental framework.
You'd have to process things 100 miles an hour.
Right. You cannot execute acrobatic decoupling or calculate a kinetic break if your brain is stuck in traditional linear thought.
Which brings us to the second half of these documents, where my sci-fi alarms started ringing at full volume. The physical side is wild, but the mental side is where Dr. Sewell takes a massive leap.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Bye 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 magazine feature introduces what Dr. Sewell calls the sovereign mindset. TrueFlow isn't just physical mechanics. It is governed by concepts like the reality level scalar and the TrueFlow force.
Okay, I need you to translate this for me.
Yeah.
Because what does a reality level scalar actually mean in the context of someone throwing a flying knee in a gym? Are they using magic?
It's not magic, but it is a highly advanced cognitive framework. Practitioners are trained to treat physical engagements as fluid probability matrices across state space.
Still sounds like sci-fi. Fluid probability matrices.
Let's break it down. In physics and mathematics, a state space is a conceptual area where every possible state of a system is represented as a unique point.
Okay, I'm with you.
Imagine a chessboard, but instead of discrete squares, it's a fluid, continuous field of movement. The TrueFlow practitioner is processing the fight not as I block, then I punch, but as a matrix of infinite physical possibilities unfolding simultaneously.
So they're cultivating a mental model where they see every possible physical outcome and angle at once. They're basically training themselves to see the matrix.
Essentially, yes. They utilize what the text calls dimensional adaptability and scalar control. Instead of viewing the combat space as a static cage or a flat mat, they view it as a pliable 3D environment.
That is wild.
It allows them to impose their absolute intent on the combat dynamics. They convert incoming hostile force directly into continuous redirected output without panicking, because in their mind they have already mapped the probability of that attack.
But to get a human brain and body to that level of superhuman processing, the system relies on a highly structured pedagogical progression, right? Like the specification outlines a quad-tier syllabus. Doesn't just hand you the keys to this high-speed drone. You have to earn them layer by layer.
Very much so.
I saw level I as the foundation.
The foundation is the crucible. This is where you pass that grueling physical qualification matrix, the 475-pound deadlifts. You learn the ambiphasic footwork, and you drill the hip snap torque until your body internalizes the hydraulic engine mechanics.
Okay, and then level 2 seems to move into the tactical applications. Right. This is where you master the kinetic brake chain we talked about, the close-range elbows, and the acrobatic decoupling. You start actually applying the mechanics to a moving target.
Which prepares you for level 3, the heavy grappling phase.
The suplexes.
Yes. This introduces the high-amplitude slams, the German suplexes, low-level submissions, and those intense mid-air tumbling escapes from wrist locks. It's about surviving when the opponent actually manages to grab you.
And finally, you reach level 4. And the title of this level alone is incredible: Multiversal Perception, Sovereign Flow State, and Live State Space Sparring.
That's quite a title.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive looking at elite strength metrics and highly detailed kinetic biomechanics, bench presses and long jumps. And now we are talking about state space sparring and multiversal perception. The jump from physical fitness to quantum philosophy is a bit jarring.
The shift is jarring until you examine the meta-context of the source material. This is where the documents expand beyond the boundaries of a simple martial arts curriculum and reveal their true nature.
I was blown away by the legal and copyright framework Dr. Sewell built around this. He strictly enforces a Creative Commons license, specifically CC BY NC ND 4.0 on all of this material.
Which is very specific.
Yeah, but it goes deeper than standard copyright. The Zenodo Archive explicitly states a sovereign intellectual property notice. He claims prior art and sovereign intellectual property over these multiversal interactions and the entire TrueFlow universe transmedia architecture.
He is legally protecting not just a story, but the physics, the biomechanics, and the philosophy of this system on a global digital scale using immutable academic repositories.
Wow.
He isn't just writing fiction, he is patenting the physical mechanics of a fictional universe.
And if that wasn't intriguing enough, there is a massive lore drop at the very end of the Bye magazine feature, like completely detached from the physical qualification matrices and the combat modules. There is this cryptic final note.
I love this part.
It's so cool. It reads, Chapter 1, Origin. Saiku Venga emerges from the rift born between slip flow and counterflow, marked by SH1 resonance.
The moment you read that, the reality level scalar, the true flow force, and the dimensional adaptability make perfect sense in a completely new context.
Everything clicks. I mean, it reads less like a standard martial arts gym brochure and more like a high-concept sci-fi universe meticulously engineered into our reality. It is as if someone dreamed up an epic, multiversal anime about a character named Saiku Venga who fights with impossible acrobatic flair. But instead of just writing the story or drawing the comic, they went back and mathematically formalized the actual real-world biomechanics required for a human being to fight exactly like that character.
It is a remarkable synthesis of disciplines. What we have unpacked today is a meticulously documented fusion of extreme human biomechanics, stringent physical powerlifting benchmarks, tumbling mechanics, and rich multiversal world building.
Really is.
Dr. Sewell has constructed a literal functional bridge between theoretical physics, elite athletic performance, and narrative fiction.
For you listening to this, I think it fundamentally challenges our preconceived notions of what physical disciplines can be.
Mm.
We like to put things in neat, comfortable little boxes. You know, you are a power lifter, or you are a gymnast, or you are a combat sports athlete, or you are a sci-fi writer building a fictional world.
Right, they don't usually mix.
But TrueFlow looks at those boxes and completely erases the lines between them. It suggests that to fight like a multiversal entity, you have to lift like a strongman and flip like a cheerleader.
Which leaves us with a fascinating question to ponder. If a physical discipline is constructed as both an elite athletic syllabus and a licensed multiversal narrative architecture, where exactly does the martial art end and the interactive transmedia storytelling begin?
That's a great question.
Can you literally, physically train your body to exist in a fictional universe?
It brings us right back to the beginning of the conversation. We talked about traditional fighters needing an anchor, needing the physical ground to push off of. TrueFlow removes the physical ground beneath your feet, but maybe it replaces it with a narrative one.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way to put it.
The anchor isn't the floor. The anchor is the story and the physics you are physically embodying. And that is a wild state space to explore. Keep flowing, stay curious, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.